Hello and namaste, everyone. So before we start with our conversation, we would like you to imagine something, just like Matt said, it's cool and scary. So you're sitting comfortably in your couch, basically, and with a few keystrokes, you are able to access a CCTV camera or track a giant floating vessel, and that too from a halfway across the world. It does sounds like a scene from a movie like James Bond or from Mr. Robot, in particular, from which we are both fascinated and inspired by. However, this is not some fiction, not some movie, not some show. This is today's reality. And with this, we would like you to welcome to our talk, which is Unlocking the Digital Landscape, Exploring the Power of OSINT for a Connected World. Having said that, we would like you to give some disclaimers to you. So, including the disclaimers, we would like to say that the digital landscape is much more vast. However, we are going to concentrate on one of its critical aspects today, and that is the maritime domain. Because in an era where information is basically power, ignorance is not a bliss, it's a risk. With that, we have the disclaimer one, and that is that content discussed on this platform is meant for educational purposes only. The misuse of any information provided shall be the sole liability of the abuser. So please take a note on that. And with great power comes great responsibility. So on the disclaimer two, we have that this talk bears no authorization from speakers, employer, and that is Transunion. Having said that, we would also like to say that the findings here are our own, and we have redacted some of the information due to the privacy concerns.
Thank you, Shubham, for that. So before we hop into our main topic and the VSAT case studies, first of how it all started, of how two security guys who were concerning about finding bugs suddenly hop into the maritime domain and find the exposed webcams. Our team was participating in a virtual CTF competition at DEF CON during the pandemic period. While solving the challenges, we stumbled across a problem that requires us to analyze an image of a vessel that needs to be tracked using the AIS data. Well, at that time, we didn't know much about the tactics and the procedures involved in the AIS-based tracking, but we find it quite interesting, and it piqued our interest, and out of curiosity, we start hopping to it. After solving the challenge, we figured this is something very much interesting, and we figured that there might be multiple devices that are connected towards the internet and may be exposed as well as leaking data in the maritime domain. So one thing led to the another, and with that, we ended up with this research. Saying that, we will be moving forward to the more obligatory slide of who we are. So my name is Sagar Tiwari. I'm an independent security researcher and OSINT enthusiast. I'm always curious to learn new things about the marine domain, about the OSINT domain, and in basic cybersecurity. For my daily job, I'm a writer and a content creator. I create content majorly focused related to cybersecurity and OSINT. I also lead a CTF team from India called F Society 00. We majorly participate in multiple international competitions, and I go by the alias name Elliot M87.
So, thank you for that, Sagar. And I'm Shubham Kumar, currently employed as a senior security analyst at Transunion. Besides that, just like all of you guys here, we are just OSINT enthusiasts and a cybersecurity evangelist. Since the domain of cybersecurity is constantly changing with a varied amount of attacks constantly updating at different times, so that is what we do. Our curiosity drives towards it, learning all these things, and also bringing this knowledge to the new world, to the new souls who are trying to enter into this realm of cybersecurity, obviously. And with that, I'm also playing a CTF with the team F Society 00 going by the name FlameX. Having said that, let's set a course for our today's exploration, and that is the table of contents. First of all, we will go into the what is maritime intelligence, understanding the basics of it. Then we will move to the key features, understanding the importance of it, terminologies, learning the basics of the language of the domain. And then we will delve into the more juicy stuff, and that is the case study 1 and 2, where we will move to the real world scenarios from the exposed devices to a level up thing. So stay tuned for that. And in the end, we have something extra to wrap things up. So let's dive in. First of all, we need to understand what is maritime intelligence. Maritime intelligence is all about utilizing information and communication technologies, or ICT in short, in order to collect, analyze, and share the information of the vast maritime domain. Now, what maritime domain is? Maritime domain is all the areas or the things that are in, on, adjacent to, or related to the seas, oceans, or the waterways. Basically, all the activities occurring there, like fishing, shipping, or the maritime environmental protection things, everything comes into the maritime domain. And that is where it becomes a big thing because it becomes a nexus of all, encompassing into itself the geopolitical scenarios too, because our sea is basically bubbling with a lot of activities, a lot of information, ranging from the commercial to the naval aspect. And as they say, our seas basically cover the 70% of our earth. Then it becomes a big thing. And also it becomes geopolitically very active. And for these kind of importances, we are going to move to the next slide, and that is the key features.
So first understanding the maritime basics and importance. Now we will be focusing on the key features. As we all know that maritime transportation is what we call the backbone of the global economy, with over 80% of the trade happening through the sea routes only. Well, given the current scenario, there is a rising tension among different countries. As Shubham said, there is a geopolitical drama going out there. So it becomes vitally important for all the nations to track, identify, and perform surveillance on any kind of illicit activities that is going on in their territorial or international waters. Apart from the nation, even for the private companies that are voyaging the cargo ships in the open seas need to make sure that there is a swift movement against any kind of threat, like terrorism or pirate operations. For the environmental protection, maritime investigation gives you the idea to potentially analyze the illegal fishing activities as well as find the anomalies of the oil spillage cases. For example, in India, we have the Sundarban Delta, one of the biggest in the world. It is full with the flora and fauna. The maritime investigation helps to track down any kind of illegal fishing or poaching that is happening, and in total, maintaining thus environmental sanity. In terms of search and rescue mission or SAR missions, the maritime intelligence provides the real-time data about the distress vessel call. So the help can be sent to them in the quickest manner possible. So now it's time to move toward the terminology section. Before we jump to the VSAT case studies. So starting with the very first, that is the VSAT or very small aperture terminal. So basically, these are the SATCOM devices that use a satellite dish to transreceive radio signal. VSAT device provide a reliable form of communication when vessels are offshore. And for that, they use this Ku band that operates on 12 to 18 gigahertz and C band that operates on 4 to 8 gigahertz. Another is AIS or automatic identification system. These transmit vital information like ships, speed, position, direction, as well as other critical information via radio signals. AIS are basically the collision avoidance system that are used for the emergency purposes. If you are familiar with the ADS-B technology that is used for the aircraft tracking, AIS works in more or less similar manner. For the identification purposes, IMO number is there. So the first 3 digits of IMO stand for the International Maritime Organization, followed by a 7-digit unique number. On the other hand, we have the MMSI or Maritime Mobile Service Identity Number. These are used to track and identify a vessel from the traffic monitoring system. The first 3 digits of MMSI represent the nation code of and called MID values or Maritime Identification Digit values, followed by a 6-digit unique number. Now, what is the basic difference between IMO and MMSI? So, IMO number remains constant for the entire life cycle of a vessel. So once it is assigned, it will remain same for it. Doesn't matter who the owner is. But for the MMSI, the number can be changed if a vessel decides to voyage under a different flag, mean for a different nation. In that case, MID value will change. The radio call signs are basically the radio codes that are given to the operators even in the seas on the base station to equally and individually identify every radio communication. The hull numbers are the unique 12-digit number that are given by the manufacturer. These are like the VIN numbers of a car. So after understanding the terminologies, it's time to move to the case study 1.
So, having understood about the basic terminologies, that is the language of the domain itself, we are going more into the more juicy stuff, that is the practical aspect of all things. And with that, we will start our exploration with case study 1, and that too with discovery. And just like every other investigation that we do, the point here is to collect the information, and the information which is related to the exposed devices. Now, there are many methods out there which can be utilized in order to find them. For our own investigation purpose, we have utilized sensors in order to find these exposed devices, or in our context, the VSAT ones. Why VSAT? Because as Sagar explained, like VSAT basically means very small aperture terminals. They are not just some technology term. They are very powerful and they are reliable too. They have a high bandwidth capability with a bandwidth management too that can be utilized on different ships, and they provide a much more reliable communication in case of the remote areas. Now, the thing is that after we have utilized our platform like sensors in order to identify them, we are going to get a list of it. For our context, we have utilized the Cobham VSAT series, and that too, the Sailor 600, Sailor 800, or Sailor 900. The thing is that all the IPs that we are going to get here won't be necessary that way. They will be accurate to the point. However, it will give us a first list on which we can tread on the subsequent step. And that brings us to the step 2, and that is the reconnaissance mode. Now, reconnaissance is all about, like in military and cybersecurity terms, is all about gathering intelligence, right? So here, what we are going to do, we are going to take all of those IP addresses that we have get from the discovery step and then verify them. More like segregating the noise, segregating mainly the important things out of the noisy terms, right? Here. So how we are going to do it? We are going to each individual IP in order to see what the ports and services basically it is running. More like knocking on the door in order to see who is behind them. At the end of this step, we will have a refined list of the IP addresses on which we can concentrate and work upon, so that our efforts in the further actions will be far more fruitful. So that brings us to the step 3, and that is the data extraction. Now, data extraction is the very important portion of things, because here we are going to get a critical information. How? After obtaining the refined list of IP address, more like the suspect that we are focusing on, we can delve deep into it, accessing the VSAT console. Now, the VSAT console is like the ship's digital dashboard, where you are going to get a plethora of information. Because now, because ship in itself is a floating ICS, a large, big ICS in terms. So it will have a lot of information. Some of this information can be very crucial and very critical if they came into the hands of an adversary. For our own talk purpose, we are going to concentrate on 2 of its aspects, and that is the status of it and the location of it, which you can see as the GNSS position. After obtaining this critical information, we will go to the localization and mapping. And you can consider this phase as basically the portion we are going to make our information come to life, right? So all the data that we have collected till now was more of a backend portion. We are now bringing it to the presentation layer, and that is it. We are taking those GNSS location, the raw coordinates, and putting them on the map choice of our own. This step will give you a visualization in order to pinpoint the location where the ship is located in real time. Now, this is a very crucial aspect too, because if an adversary is able to pinpoint the location of a ship, and that too which is located at a very remote location, then it can be disastrous. However, after understanding this, we will move to the end of the portion, and that is the cross verification. Cross verifications comes to the phase where we are going to validate our information that we have collected from the previous step. Now, why we are just putting it down? Because we want to showcase that VSAT collected information can also be utilized in order to find a position of a ship or locating it. Now, the thing is that we are turning to other data providing platforms, such as the ones which are utilizing AIS-based technology, as we all know here. So we turn to different platforms like Marine Vessel or Vessel Finder or Ship Atlas in particular that we are utilizing right now. So the important point to note here was that we were able to validate the two informations more because the ship was located near a landmass. And as Sagar has said, that these AIS receivers have a particular range. So the ship was particularly in the range of it. It was able to be detected by it. That is why we were able to correlate. However, after the correlation, we found out that the two locations were, the two informations that we got were actually on match with each other. That is why we want to bring it to the point. Like apart from the technologies where AIS actually is not able to keep up, there are other methods out there which can be utilized by an adversary, like in VSAT case, if it is exposed. Having said that, we are going to make it to a level up, and that is to the next slide.
So isn't it amazing and as well as bit of scary that just by using few things we can track the ship? From the case study one, we understand how to track and identify a marine vessel either using the VSAT or the AIS data. But now it's time to level up the game. By that, we mean to track it more precisely. And by precision, I mean not only just locate it on the map, but also to visually confirm it with your own eyes and to gather as much evidence as we can. So moving toward the case study 2, the very first step is to get the location, and that can be obtained through the coordinates that is being obtained by the prescribed strap in the case study 1. So once we have the coordinate, we know that where the ship is located. So in this image, we can see there is a ship. For to be precise, it's a cruise ship. For a better and concise understanding, let's call this ship X, and its location has been tracked near a port area in the Norwegian region. From the acquired AIS data, we can see that we have also got the IMO number, MMSI number, radio call signs, flag, recent port call, as well as the dimension. Well, these facets and little pieces of information are quite important. Why? Because from the perspective of an OSINT analyst, he can or she can correlate this data from the publicly available records like ship schedules, news media reports, as well as social media posts. And then he or she can use it to further course of the investigation. But not only this, even the radio call signs are very much important because they have helped to identify and validate any kind of threats by listening to the radio communication that is happening. And they can be done by using a shortwave radio or SDR devices, software-defined radios, basically. The dimensions are also important for the investigator because it helps to understand the type of ship or the target they are looking for. Either it's a cargo ship or a tanker ship. In that case, they know what kind of good it is carrying, and accordingly, they can further move on to their cases. Is there an illicit activity going on or not? So having these all information in our hand, let's move to the step number 2, that is to track the movement. So once we get the location of our ship X, we will start hunting for any exposed webcam, IP cam, or CCTV footages near that area. Why we are doing so? Because we want to visually confirm as well as monitor it for gathering more evidence, as we already said. So once we get the location, we know it's up near a port area in the Norwegian region. One can hunt these by using the Google Docs or the internet connected devices search engine like Shodan or Census. Or they can also go for the public repositories where there are multiple webcams reported by the multiple users. For our own research purpose, we have focused on Windy. That is a primary app designed for the weather updates. But its webcam facility is quite useful because all of the information is being embedded on a global map. So it becomes very much handy to pinpoint a particular location and see the CCTV footages if it is present or not. There is one more methodology which you can use or an investigator can use. They can go to the Google Maps in the 3D Street View map section. They can understand the surrounding areas and look for the CCTV cameras in the latest available map, so that it has become very much easier to know that there is a camera there or not, and they can accordingly find it if it is exposed or not. So having that CCTV footage, as you can see in the image, we can visually confirm the location of the ship. But not only this, Windy has another feature that it has a 24-hour past recording too. So it becomes very much easier to monitor the activities, like who is getting in, who is getting out, what kinds of payloads and goods are being loading or unloading. Well, these are some critical pieces of information that an investigator should be looking forward for. For an instance, imagine you are an OSINT analyst or OSINT investigator. You have been tasked to track and visually confirm a location of a ship. A sailing boat is coming to a dock area and it has shown some anonymous behavior. It has been subjected that it has carrying some and transporting some illicit materials like drug smuggling. Now, in order to track it, we have already described the steps in the case study 1. So using those information, one can track that down. And using the second case study information to get the exposed CCTV camera footages, they can look for any kind of incident or any kind of information and insight that they're looking forward for. So once they get it, they can monitor it accordingly and report it. But what if this information is not enough? What if you need to particularly target an incident or a particular individual? And for that, we have to pivot to the part 3 or step 3, that is precise tracking. So using the same methodology like Google Docs or the Shodan search engines, or by performing a targeted reconnaissance, any individual can look for the onboard webcams. Well, for our research purpose, we have focused on Cruising Earth, a repo that has multiple webcams of multiple cruising ships. Apparently, the site owner wants to give users a traveling feel. But this information can be leveraged by an adversary to see what kind of incident is happening on a boat. It is very much useful because there are multiple webcams on board that gives you the subject of interest information readily available on your hands. Like as you can see in the image, we have the front deck and the rear deck images of our ship X. Using this information, we can also track the ship in the open sea waters and the unknown lands by introducing geospatial intelligence. Saying so, just by using a browser and few OSINT tactics up your sleeve, any individual can track, identify, or monitor the surveillance, the particular type of ship. It has become very much useful if it is done with good intent, but things can be devastating if it is done by an adversary or a threat actor. Now we have some other additional findings too, which are really not scope of the talk, but they are very much important moving forward.
So till now, what we have understood is about locating the ships and eventually also seeing the person behind it. So isn't that quite scary and beautiful on its own? However, to wrap things up, we have something which is called as additional findings here. And as Sagar has said, that these are not in the scope of talk. However, they are very critical in nature. So as we have discussed in the case study 1, extraction phase, that getting onto the console of the VSAT itself, like the ship's VSAT console, when we are able to have it, then it reveals out a plethora of information out there in open. As you can see in front of you, there is a site map. The site map gives you a basic schema out there, more like the capabilities that you can see what the VSAT is able to provide you, ranging from the satellite profile itself to the modem ones, to the blocking zone itself, to the email setup, here, and to the export and import of different configuration files. All of these things will require you more of an administrative access. But what we can say about the administrative access, a lot of default credentials exist out there, isn't it? And what if this adversary utilizes it to penetrate into these VSAT consoles of the ship? Their attack can be devastating. There can be a lot of the information leakage out there or the phishing attacks, which are very popular. And this can go on. Having said that, there are other portions too, which you don't require an administrative access at all. I mean, a basic invader just go into the VSAT console, access it, and get into these informations. One of this very important information that we found out during our investigation was in the help desk section. In support one, you can see there is one thing that is called the diagnostic report, which provides you almost a data based on it, a report to download that can vary on base of the day, the week, or the month period. It's more like you are providing your ex-medical records basically to a person. What the things can be done. When we downloaded and when we were investigating into this portion, we found out almost 68 of these fields. And these 68 of these fields contain a vital set of information out there, ranging from the position, latitudes, ship's speed, the navigational position it was taking, the frequency that it was utilizing. And that these are the things that were quite critical. It's more like giving it a history of information about where the ship has traveled. And this information can be widely used by the adversaries for more sophisticated attacks because they can understand where the ship was taking a route on. They can understand where the ship is actually going. And in this geopolitical scenario and defense perspective, this is very crucial and very critical too. And with that said, it's very important to patch things up here. And this is what we want to demonstrate, and more on the perspective of the overall summary.
So moving forward to the overall summary, there are a few key takeaways. So modern threats require modern solution, and these threats are real because it won't take much to expose these sensitive information. Just by traversing through the Shodan or sensors like search engine, an individual can discover multiple internet connected devices. Some of the devices are like the VSAT one that expose lots of critical information. Apart from these, the webcam is a big invasion of privacy because it allows anyone to peek into your digital life. So we think it's a high time for the government, organization, as well as individual and manufacturers to patch up the security, to tighten up the security and remove these exposed devices. Because always remember, somewhere someone is watching you. And on that note, we'd like to thank you and end our presentation. We also like to thank our team, that is Playmax, Cursed Hacker, Nito Null, Mac, Pano, and Redwood. If anybody wants to get in connect with us, we'd like to give, and we would be more than happy to connect. These are our profile links. Thank you.
Having said that, we will also like to thank SANS Hosted Summit 2023 for presenting, for giving us an opportunity for researchers like us, a field where we can present our research and investigations out there. And with that note, we would like to say, in an information age where you are living, where it is very critical, ignorance is not a bliss, it's a risk. So keep happy. Thank you.
Thank you.